You are enough. You may not realize it now, but you are enough. It doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter all of those thoughts in your head that are tearing you down and making you feel like less than what you actually are. Believe me when I tell you, you are enough. I want to read a poem from Gwendolyn Brooks. It's called A Song in the Front Yard. I've stayed in the front yard all my life. I want to peek at the back, where it's rough and untended and hungry weed grows. A girl gets sick of a rose. I want to go in the backyard now, and maybe down the alley to where the charity children play. I want a good time today. They do some wonderful things. They have some wonderful fun. My mother sneers, but I say it's fine. How they don't have to go in the 8:45. My mother, she tells me that Johnny May will grow up to be a bad woman. That George will be taken to jail soon or late on account of the last winter he sold our back gate. But I say it's fine. Honest, I do. But I'd like to be a bad woman too, and wear the brave stockings of night black lace and strut down the streets with paint on my face. Written by Gwendolyn Brooks. I was in 10th grade when I discovered who Gwendolyn Brooks was. She changed my life. There was moments when I was reading her poetry, and I realized that there was so much more to this woman than what is on the page. She has inspired multiple poetry writings that I've collected in the years. One of them, which is on the QR code of her candle that I created, the lavender, pine, and cedar scented candle. This candle comes alive. This candle is so much more than a candle. It is a voice for women. It is a voice for the caged bird. It is a voice for the person who feels as though they need more, who wants to be more than what they've seen their entire lives. Be seen. Be you. You are enough.
There's been a lot going on this week. So I didn't film. I didn't film on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday. Actually, today is Friday. And I realized I didn't film this morning, and it's very early in the morning right now. I'm up before my kids are up. They don't have camp today. I don't have to do any counseling today. So it is still summer. Before the school year starts, we have like a little over a month before the school year starts. And I know my schedule is going to look drastically different once the school year starts. But what's been going on this week? I did have an interview on Wednesday, on July 23rd. And that was with my uncle's TV show and his radio station. So I had that interview on YouTube, and I will have a link in the description box where you can watch that interview. Also, I feel like I've been stuck in like this idea of thinking of what I want to do versus what I have on hand. With, for example, with my inventory in hand right now. So I want to do wholesale, and I also want to prep for markets, because as you all know, I have 2 markets coming up in August, and for those 2 markets, I want to make sure I have everything I need. And one of the jars that I use for my Dead Poet Society back there, that cream large jar, is out of stock where I get it from until the end of September. So I have a few extra jars on hand, but once they're filled, I don't have enough to do 2 markets, and there's not going to be enough jars. So I have to test a new smaller jar that's the same size to see if that's something I could run for the same fragrances, just to keep those continuing going for the customers. So these are the types of things that happen when you own a business. You gotta be flexible. There's gonna be times when your candle jar is out of stock, or your fragrance got discontinued, or you can't find your wicks anywhere. But I know that we are entering candle season, so it's going to be harder to find things that I need to do what I need to do. But that's just part of when it is in stock, is get what you can in bulk so that you can do what you need to do later. What else has been going on this week is like I've been reaching out to a lot of markets. So my process for reaching out to markets, a lot of it for me, so I know there's the zapplication.com or .org website where people go and look for markets all over the country. But where I tend to look for markets is actually on Facebook. So I go to Facebook and I look up craft shows near me. And then that's where I'm able to find a lot more that are not on the Zapplication. I don't know why they're not on that platform, but I noticed that there's a lot more places that are having craft shows, that some of them just pop up randomly. There was one I applied to in Talon County out here that just came up last week that wasn't posted before, and that one's in September. So I was like, oh, sent out an application for that, uploaded all my required documents, waiting for them to get back to me with that. And that one is in September, and they just posted it. So that's like an example of why it's not on Zap for some reason. But there's that one. And then I found a market in New York that we're going to be going to in November. And then there were two in Maine, which where we're at, it's only like, I think an hour or so away from where we normally would. Yeah, it's like an hour or so away from where we live. So it's not that bad. So, and we're in Connecticut. So that's those extra markets that came up. And then we're pending for a market near us in Connecticut. And that one would be in October. So I'm trying to think of all the markets. I've been in this like trying to figure out like for markets, because you don't know how much you're gonna sell. You could sell all of it. And I'm like, okay, that would be amazing. Or you could not. And you don't really know where you stand with how much you need to get because you don't know yet. So this will be a testing phase. So we'll see what happens, right? So in addition to me trying to figure out how many candle jars I would need, how much supplies I would need, I also am trying to figure out how I can get customers to come back from just the market. So me and Adam were discussing that with a lot of the customers. Sometimes people come to markets and they only want to get something once, but we're trying to figure out how we can get them coming back. And we do have an email newsletter. So we have what we created, and I'm working on it in Canva, is making a flyer for each one of my candle jars and their unique fragrances. And it has like the product description of the fragrance next to the picture of the candle for each one in the line. So I have the Soundscapes line has their own flyer, and it has a QR code of where they could sign up for the newsletter. So I use a lot of QR codes in my business. They could just scan the QR code, sign up for the newsletter, and they can also scan the other QR code, which is my link tree that leads to all of my social media. And then I also have something I created. Let me see where it is. Yeah, so I created another thing for customers once they purchase from me at markets, where they could get a coupon in hand that I would give them, and it would give them free shipping on their next purchase. So they would have that incentive, as well as I would ask them to sign up for the newsletter. And once they sign up for the newsletter and they purchase something from me, I will give them this coupon for their next purchase. And then hopefully they continue to watch our journey and follow us probably on Instagram and things like that, so that I can, and in our newsletter, so that I can have a connection, a relationship with the customer. So that we're trying to figure out all of the flyer situation. I only did two so far, Soundscapes and Dead Poet Society. I still got to do one for Many Messengers. That's a different line because it's a personalized candle. So I want to make sure that one looks a little bit different. Also, that one has 8 fragrances versus the other two only have 6 in each line. So making one for that this week. That's what I've been working on. A lot of computer stuff. I did make a couple of jars for my Gwendolyn Brooks candle, which is my lavender, pine, and cedar scented candle. And it has a poem, if you scan it, that was inspired, that I wrote and recorded myself, and I made the video myself for Gwendolyn Brooks poetry. So I'm trying to get everything together for the market. I also am bringing to the market a poetry book that I published myself many years ago, so that customers can purchase that as well. So I was looking on Amazon of where I can get ways to display the books, and I found this like a nail polish holder that would look really cool for sliding the books in, so it like displays it nicely, like different. I think playing with height is really nice at markets instead of having everything flat on the table, for customers to walk by and see it, so they don't have to walk up on it and look at it flat on the table. They can see it as they're walking by, and then they might want to walk into the market, walk into the canopy. So that was one thing I was working on as well. Also, like I feel like something a lot of people don't talk about in their YouTube videos is like managing business expenses when you are a small business and you're just starting. It can be a little difficult to do at first when you aren't bringing in a lot of sales and you still have to manage that margin and paying for the expenses. Like each month I have certain subscriptions I have to pay for. I have to pay for my website, QuickBooks, Inventora, and Google Workspace, a bunch of other things that I pay for each month. And then taxes, I have those due at the end of this month too. I am a single member LLC, so that's something I have to do every single month. And then when I switch over to being an S Corp, it's going to switch things with that. So I plan on doing that later on this year. So there's a lot of different things I have going on, a lot of layers of things I'm working on while also working and raising my kids. And it can be to the point where there's a lot in your brain and it can be overwhelming. I did notice that when we're using Monday.com still, it's working out really well with trying to stay on task with what's the most important thing, because it's easy to get stuck into things that aren't really super important, but you feel like you have to do them. Right now, I'm at a phase where everything kind of is important to get established as a system. And then going forward, things like the flyers that I create for markets, like now that I'm in the summertime and the school year did not start yet, that's something that's really important, is creating those flyers for those markets that are coming up. Because once the school year starts, I'm going to be going to a lot more markets and I won't have as much time because I'm going to be working 5 days a week instead of just 2 days a week doing counseling. So that's going to change the amount of time I have. Last night I was extremely tired and I did not want to put in work to the business, but I did still. I poured some candles. That footage I'm going to show you at some point in this video, I think, of what that process is for me making candles. So I was getting into doing that again. I do have things I need to get to. So I was on Amazon. I'm like pulling myself in so many different directions. I was on Amazon trying to figure out some other last minute things I need to get for the market. That folding bookshelf back there, I'm going to need to get another one of those. And because the market we have at the mansion, I believe is going to be a bigger turnout probably than the Madison market, but I don't really know for certain, mainly because of how I've seen it marketed. And then I just wanted to let everyone know that everything's a journey. When you're starting your candle business, when you're trying to grow your candle business or any handmade business, everything is a journey. And you can go through moments. I'm going through this moment right now, feeling kind of frantic, feeling kind of all over the place, trying to stabilize my thoughts and be like, okay, focus on this thing. And then once I'm focused on this thing, the months are flying by. Like I'm looking at the calendar now and I'm like, I cannot believe that we're basically on the last week of July. How did that happen so quickly? I remember we're at the beginning of the month and I'm like, oh, we have our zoning permit town hearing coming up, which I got approved for my zoning permit. And then I reached out to the lady at the town hall and I was like, hey, so what's the next thing I'm supposed to do? And apparently I'm supposed to get something in the mail after it was published again that I was approved inside of the newspaper yesterday for our town. And then I'm going to get something in the mail. And then 15 days after that, this is what she told me, 15 days after that, I have to bring that document that I get in the mail to the land use office and then pay another fee for more documentation, basically saying that it's a record of me using the land for this purpose and things like that. It's a lot of steps. Zoning permits are a lot of steps. I didn't realize that when in the beginning. Like I knew I had to get one. I didn't know all the steps. I know there was a lot of things I needed to get to make sure I came across as a professional and to come across it because I'm a handmade business, because I'm an LLC, I'm a small business that works from my home. And for some reason, being a Black woman makes me feel like I have to come across as extra professional when I come to things like this, like for the town hall, for meetings and stuff like that. I feel like I have to, put my voice up 2 extra octaves and be more like, yes, I don't know. It's just me. It's in my head. That's how I feel. So that's something that when I put together everything for the zoning permit, that's something I kept in mind when I was doing my presentation. And I think it helped a lot, honestly. I was able to answer the questions, I believe, eloquently. It was recorded also at the town hall. There was, if you guys have any questions about the zoning process, I can definitely answer those. So you can put those in the comment section and I will make another video answering those questions about zoning permits if you don't know where to start. I do suggest getting all the documentation you can, showing what I did, whether I showed proof of my insurance, proof of registration. I got a letter from my landlord stating that it was okay that I manufactured candles in my home. I sent out certified mail, which is expensive. It's over $5 per envelope, certified mail with a letter written for each of the people within 100 feet of my home so that I can let them know that I'm going to be manufacturing candles. If they have any questions, they can attend the hearing. And no one attended the hearing from the neighbors I had that I sent letters to. I spent like over $100 mailing those letters out to people. I had 18 different people I had to mail letters to. No one, no one showed to the hearing for that. It was mainly like other business owners that were there to give their information about why they should be getting a permit for their town. And it was nice to actually see how other businesses have their presentations up. They literally would have a presentation that they're giving with like information, and like they're standing up. It's very formal. You know, that's just how they did it. I did not have that, and I felt like I wasn't ready because I was just a handmade business. But I did have my notes. I wrote like a statement out that was probably about 2 paragraphs of why I was doing what I was doing, how I make my candles. I didn't give out information about my formula or anything like that, but how it's safe, how I use a digiboil. I use electrical heat to make my candles, and I don't have an open fire or anything that can cause a fire or any safety concerns in the home, which I think is the biggest part of the whole process. People are afraid that you're going to burn down things versus just cooking in your kitchen, which is really interesting, but it is what it is. So I had to defend that. I talked about how I use a coconut-apricot wax, how clean my fragrances are, things like that, to make it sound, you take the highlights of your business and you put them into your statement. And that, I think, is the best thing to do. So that's what I did. I got approved doing it that way. So that's what I would recommend you do. Again, this is my first zoning hearing that I went to. I got approved for the zoning permit, so I would suggest doing it that way. Every town is completely different. You may have a town where people actually show up after you send out those letters, the certified mail, and they may protest you starting a candle business for whatever reason that they may have against either you or your business or against you manufacturing candles. So you have to be ready to defend yourself just in case that does happen. So there's lots of different things that could happen that didn't happen to me, but they could happen to someone else. So be prepared for that in case you do have a zoning hearing. Another thing I'm working on is managing business expenses. So that's something I'm trying to get like a budgeting app. I know I use QuickBooks. I'm still trying to learn how to use QuickBooks for all of the different things in there. I need to probably watch a tutorial about how to do that. I mainly use it for like logging all my receipts and everything like that. And I learned that now that I have this, there's certain things I'm learning along my journey. So this is my first year in business. So I'm learning that now that I have a candle business that's in its own room in my home that's solely used for manufacturing candles and production of candles and everything for the LLC, that there are certain things you can write off in taxes. And I didn't know that. I learned that I could write off electrical expenses used for this room. If you don't know about that stuff, these are things you can hire a CPA for or get a business consultant. Ask them things like that, like the keep and track your inventory, why that is important. I recently saw a YouTube video where someone was going to make a wholesale order and then they found out they didn't have enough lids for all their order. Sometimes this happens to people. They find out they don't have enough wax. They don't have enough jars for the order. And I think it's because I was watching these videos, which made me think I should make sure that I have all of these things in order before I even start sending out emails to potential wholesale collaborators, so that I can make sure I can follow through on what I need to do. Because especially with my DPS jar being out of stock until the end of September, if I get a wholesale order in and the minimum people can place is 12 candles, then I could be in some problem. I could be in some deep water, not realizing it, thinking whatever, that it might not happen to me, but it could happen to people. So keep these things in mind. I highly recommend Inventora. And every time you make more candles to put towards your inventory, do a production run and let Inventora know that you are using these amount of resources from what you have, from your raw materials to make these candles. So it will let you know how many you can make going forward after you use that. My son just scared the crap out of me, just opened my door. I'm recording a YouTube video, look at that. So you know how many candles you can actually make after you do your production run, so then you know how much you need to order afterwards. Also, another thing that's great with Inventora is that you can place your order for the next things that you need. So if you need more wax or fragrance, wicks, jars, lids, anything that you are using for your candle dye, you can put that order through Inventora and get it done that way. So I think that's a great tip. And I don't know if there's a lot of candle businesses that are using Inventora. I highly recommend keeping track of everything that way, because it's hard to just know off the top of your head all the time, like, oh yeah, I can make 3 wholesale orders, and then you find out you can't, and then you go to place the order for needing more lids or more wax, and then you find out, oh, it's out of stock until the end of next month or something like that, and then you have to refund the customers. It's kind of embarrassing. You don't want to go down that path. So to avoid all that, Inventora, highly recommend. Also using Monday.com too. And these are not sponsored. These are just things that I use in my business that I really like to do, and they're very helpful. They're good systems to have because it saves a lot of time, a lot of stress, and a lot of money that you don't want to have to worry about, right? And embarrassment. You don't want to be embarrassed to have to tell your customers that you weren't prepared and that this is what happened. Oops, sorry, I didn't know. Like, I don't want to end up in that situation. I'm trying to avoid it. Oh, let's see if I can. So that's what I've been going through this week. And another thing I'm trying to work on is coming out with a Halloween line. Not really a whole line. Maybe, you know what? It's not a line. It's one candle. I was testing, right now I'm testing a new fragrance for a Halloween candle, because what I did was I made a whole audio story, Halloween story, that I want to come out with. And I know it's going to be like, just like, well, this is the jar that I'm testing in. That's the jar I'm testing in. I'm going to choose a different color jar for this. I know this is going to be my smaller DPS jar because that's what's in stock now, and I have the larger jar out of stock. But I'm going to choose that ceramic jar in a different color for my Halloween candle that I'm going to be coming out with. Just as kind of like, this is funny, but like a soft launch kind of thing for another line I'm going to be coming out with later that you guys will find more information on. It's not going to come out probably until 2026. So that line is going to come out until 2026. The Halloween candle I want to come out with as soon as possible. Testing right now, getting it in the jar, make more candles, labels, the whole process. I already have the audio story done. That part is the longest part, honestly. A lot of people don't realize that's the creative part of my business is writing the stories, editing the stories, sometimes poems, editing the stories or poems, and then recording the whole process, editing the vocal ranges, adding background music to everything, and then creating a video that goes to each one, making it to a QR code, then designing the label, and then putting that on the label. Once the label's created, it's all created together. So I use Canva too to put everything together. And then once everything's together, then I can just redo the label by just printing. So then I just have the label done. The whole process that goes into it does take me a long time to do. And that's just part of my creative process. So that's my update for this week. And I will see you guys in the next video.